Good morning to all the unbreakable ones. Well, it looks like the Ukrainian armed forces are having problems in Kostiantynivka. At least that's what everyone is saying right now. And let's get right to reviewing what happened. So, Putin visited one of the Russian military headquarters and was informed that Russian forces have completely captured Kostiantynivka in the Donetsk region. There's no confirmation yet, but Putin has already made this statement to confirm it, after holding a meeting with Russian military personnel at one of the command posts of the joint group of Russian forces. The meeting was broadcast on federal channels. Here's what they're showing us now. Right now, the federal channels are showing one thing, and I'll show you now what they're demonstrating.
Russian control has been established over the city of Kostiantynivka. I want to note that the capture of Kostiantynivka is only the first but a very important stage in the rise and fall of the Ukrainian armed forces, who still endure. The Slavyansko-Kramatorsk-Konstantinovka fortified area, as you said, is where the enemy has created a deeply echeloned system of fortifications, turning the cities of Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Družkovka and Kostiantynivka into a single defensive stronghold. But with the capture of Kostiantynivka, as I understand it, we should no longer talk about the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk-Konstantinovka line, but simply about the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk line. Well, I mean, of course, there's also a small settlement, but Družkovka is also fortified, of course.
So, during the meeting, the chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, reported to Putin about the situation at the front. He also said Russian troops had captured Kostiantynivka in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Putin stated, you heard what he said, that the fighting for Kostiantynivka has been going on since October of last year, which means it's actually been more than half a year. In recent weeks, Russian forces have been seen in all areas of the city, but there were still positions of the Ukrainian armed forces there. In the Luhansk region, the Ukrainian armed forces are likely still controlling the village of Grekovo. No evidence has been published showing this village's capture. And during his meeting, Putin blocked Ukraine by expanding the security zone in the border regions. He says that the more strikes the enemy tries to carry out against civilian targets in Russia, the larger the security zone will have to be created on the adjacent territory. In addition, he called on the military to continue carrying out massive strikes on Ukraine, on Ukrainian territories, and instructed to analyze which Western countries are acting as instigators for the continuation of hostilities. Well, all these Anglo-Saxons, according to him, yes, it's been like that since Rurik's time. But there is some information from the insider.ru, and here they tell us that not everything seems so clear, although there are no denials about the capture of Kostiantynivka. So here we have, I like that there are viewpoints from both sides. For example, the Ukrainian military observer Bohdan Miroshnikov writes about back-and-forth movements in the area, like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The Ukrainian military pushes Russians north of Lyman while losing ground in the south near the Siversky Donets. The observer confirms that Russian fighters are unable to gain a foothold in the city. He predicts that the fate of the directions will not depend on the events on the Slovyansk section of the front. A Russian serviceman says that the Ukrainians are trying to hold on in the northern part of Kostiantynivka and even carried out an unsuccessful mechanized attack. They are also destroying a building in the city with guided aerial bombs. According to him, Russian drone operators are establishing fire control over logistics routes. There is also information that the Russian armed forces have captured Alexandrovka in the Dnipropetrovsk region and published a video. Those very flag-planting videos. Well, obviously all these videos are heroic, and Alexandrovka, as they say, is fully controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces and is more than 8 kilometers away from the northern zone. And that's actually not a small distance at all. If it's 8 kilometers from the zone and suddenly controlled by Russian troops, then it's probably part of the zone too. It's not separated from it at all. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Ukrainian armed forces have improved positions, some of which remain unreported. Deep State, in turn, marked on their map that the Russian armed forces lost control on the northern outskirts of Plavny on the bank of the Dnipro River. And here, for example, there are representatives of the forces who claim that the change actually took place up to a month ago. But for security reasons, they only shared this information now. And in addition, 49 out of 8,284 strikes with glide bombs carried out by Russian forces over the past month have been marked on the map. Next, there are stories about mutual shelling, but that's not particularly interesting. In general, if Kostiantynivka is really done for, as representatives of the Russian Federation report, then of course that means a lot. That is, the agglomeration immediately loses part of its, let's say, defensive resilience. And if there are problems in the other settlements in this same agglomeration, then the armed forces of Ukraine will have difficulties preventing attacks by the Russian armed forces in other areas. Naturally, the fewer fortified settlements remain under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine, the harder it is to control all of this. So, well, it's hard to predict for now. Let's wait a couple of days and see what they report next. But there is some very interesting news. There are the Baltic states who are always saying, now we're going to attack everyone. We're about to launch an attack. And we'll capture Iturup, we'll take Sakhalin, we'll enter Kaliningrad. And now, yes, that's what the president of Lithuania said. Well, let's see what he said. It's extremely interesting. Lithuania intends to join NATO's nuclear deterrence system. So that's the same NATO which is now losing blood and sweat, so to speak, because the US is leaving NATO unattended. The powerful Baltic states declare that now we will fix everything. Once we join, there won't be enough sky and land for you, enemies. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda stated that his country intends to join NATO's collective nuclear deterrence system. According to him, the corresponding constitutional amendment should remove the existing restrictions on the possible use of nuclear weapons in Lithuania. And this amendment, Nausėda says, would allow Lithuania to maintain peace and support NATO in the area of collective nuclear deterrence and to participate in it. In addition, he emphasized that the initiative has nothing to do with aggressive actions or provoking escalation. He also emphasized that at the moment Lithuania has no immediate plans to deploy nuclear weapons on its territory. Here, an immediate question arises. How are you going to control this very nuclear deterrence if you don't have any nuclear weapons? I mean, what kind of pipe dreams are these, really? So, honestly, I don't understand. It's one thing, for example, like Belarus, which took and accepted part of Russia's nuclear weapons. Yes, all of this is controlled by the Russian Federation, but still. But here, there are neither nukes nor control, but still, we're joining the forces. Well then, let me join too. I don't have nukes either, and honestly, I don't even want to have them. But why not join? Do you know what kind of budgets you can tap into there? It's just wonderful. By the way, for anyone who's tired of politics, I have a completely apolitical channel. It's called Americans on the Moon, and here I talk about science without any politics. For example, the temperature catastrophe. Yes, we've all noticed where it has gotten hotter. We're figuring out the reasons why it's cooler in some places. Come and watch this video. They found something under Antarctica. Because of temperature changes, we're all getting dumber. And also, we're trying to debunk myths together with people who have been exposed to extremely high temperatures. There are also all sorts of tapes here with guys under the table. And Yuri Friedri. And yes, there are a lot of other people telling stories there too, so we're trying to fight it. Subscribe to the channel. It will be interesting. It's not quite clear what is meant here. Maybe this very person is telling Nausėda that in fact the nuclear deterrence forces will still be there, but we won't tell you about them. It's like the song Divers by the band Mamadou, I think, where they sang that we have such devices, but we won't tell you about them. Well, that's how the three Balts are too. Maybe they'll even get bicycles with a nuclear engine. Now, problems have arisen from the Italian side. Italy would like to soften the wording in the final statement of the NATO summit in Ankara regarding providing military aid to Ukraine until the end of 2027. Rome stated that specifying concrete timeframes could prematurely signal the impossibility of resolving the war through negotiations at an earlier stage. It looks and sounds rather strange, but nevertheless, mentioning specific aid would be a change compared to last year's statement, which did not mention financial assistance to Ukraine. Again, several questions arise here. Is this good, is this bad, or has nothing changed? But it's kind of strange to read all this, like let's change our joint communiques. Yes, Yura, it's one thing on paper, but de facto it's another. Then later there's something else on our minds and we're all so serious there, as soon as we start thinking about what's happening and yet nothing. By the way, regarding the opponents of funding Ukraine, the Poles also spoke out, but I mentioned that in the previous evening video. So if Italy joins in as well, then of course we'll have something to talk about. As for the Poles, here comes the unexpected Sibiga, this character with his bulletproof vest. Wait, that's not it. A bulletproof vest for his head. He met with the representative of Poland and stated that there is a package of anti-crisis measures to reduce tensions between Kyiv and Warsaw. You know, to make someone feel good, you first have to make things really bad and then take away half of the really bad. And the person goes, oh, things are just bad now, so that means it's good. Well, apparently that's pretty much the approach Sibiga is taking, and he's talking about how, wait, there's some kind of spy flying around here. That's dangerous, I think. He's talking about how there are 3 directions for harmonizing the actions of Ukraine and Poland. The first one, launching consultations between the foreign policy departments of the 2 countries. Second, meetings of historians who study World War II and participated in the Polish-Ukrainian Congress of Historians. And third, an appeal to the religious leaders of both countries to use their authority to support internal dialogue. Well, I have to say, when it comes to issues of war and negotiations, religious leaders were just about the only ones missing. That's just insane. If you throw any of them into the mix, then honestly it's all over. Now the third part probably of our little Malaison ballet here is that Sumy has come under fire. There's a huge problem in Sumy. Russia dropped a bomb on one of the main streets in Sumy, and several people died there at once. This happened on Friday evening. As a result of the strike on one of the main streets, at least 4 people were killed. At the hospital, doctors managed to resuscitate a man whose heart had stopped, but he is still in critical condition. There are other problems there as well, but the fact remains that the strikes continue. And there, no protection is needed. Then Zelensky was immediately warned, without any pause from the discussion with Poland, about the terrible consequences of the scandal with Poland for Ukraine. The fact is that Zelensky managed to even anger the most liberal and militant Tusk, said Zelensky's former press secretary Yulia Mendel. Earlier, Tusk made a request regarding Ukraine after the scandal. Zelensky urged the Polish delegation at the NATO summit to exercise caution regarding financial support for Kyiv. But I also published a video about how Poland has scrapped, recycled, or plans to recycle all its planes, the MiGs, so that they wouldn't end up in Ukraine, which does not support the cooperation program with the Poles. The Ukrainians promised some drones, and in return the Poles promised them planes. In the end, the Poles didn't get any drones, but accordingly the Ukrainians didn't get any planes. So everything here is more or less fair. And finally, Ukrainians are starting to have problems abroad, not only in Germany, where Portogena's Smerts reached an agreement with Zelensky, but also in the United Kingdom. Here, people who have received refugee status may be required to reimburse about £10,000 sterling for the expenses that the government spent on their support. A total of £4 billion was spent, and in particular this refers to housing payments and, weekly subsidies. Refugees who have received the right to permanent residence and have an income will have to pay a fixed fee, approximately £10,000 sterling. And those whose asylum applications have been rejected will have to fully repay the state's expenses before entering the country, including in the case of repeated entry. In general, things are gradually getting worse, and the conditions for Ukrainians to enter any foreign country are becoming more complicated. But earlier there were warnings that this could really happen, so it's probably not surprising. So what now? Now powerful leaders are suddenly coming to our homes, so let's see who they are. We watched Chuvreshnik and all those powerful leaders. Let's try to take a look at the young one. Young Lenin in the form factor of young Elton John, with the addition of glasses like the Terminator. This demolition man is talking to someone named Bratchuk Venkor. Let me make myself Venkor too. Right now I'm immediately becoming Venkor. And we're all discussing something in common. Venkor Bratchuk apparently laid out all sorts of leaves in his kitchen and made himself, protected himself from drone attacks, maybe from his wife who was trying to make him take out the trash or something like that. In short, the guy is hiding behind this net. And I have to point out, even here, you see, I'm hiding, even on my t-shirt, the little heart is kind of hidden by the transparency. Well, in the end, let's see what's going on with young Lenin and Bratchuk.
To the area, it's very important in this direction because the enemy is taking a lot of losses here and has lost almost 40,000 for the chromoscope.
Young Lenin immediately started dozing off as the words were spoken, first nodded, maybe his autonomic system isn't working properly. He nodded and immediately started falling asleep. But what can you do? Difficulties arise here. Working so much on the TV marathon, naturally you'll get dizzy.
You can count how many of these packages they have per 1 square kilometer of Ukrainian land. More will come, I hope. Today we have launched counter-attacking actions.
Young Lenin falls asleep quickly just from listening to Bratchuk. I suggest we upload Bratchuk's speeches somewhere on Spotify or on Amazon or on YouTube. If he has such an effect, making people fall asleep, calming them down, then he could easily become a millionaire. But just imagine, this person is so effective. Before there were Kasparovsky and Chumak performing, but here Bratchuk managed to put the journalist himself to sleep. True, it's not that hard to put him to sleep, but still...
I can add to that. I called the territory myself. Territory.
Young Lenin woke up like, huh? Where's my coffee? What am I doing here? What's going on anyway? Then there's something else. We have this little cupcake who rides around in a car with chevrons stuck on the ceiling. And he obviously imagines himself as a war correspondent too. He doesn't have a protective mesh like the real ones, but he thinks highly of himself. And look, there's a journalist, Maria. Kliuk looks disapprovingly at Pirozhocek, whose name is Dmitro Zhmailo. So let's immediately listen to what they're telling each other.
And bring it back to the pixel.
To show this alternative that exists in mobilization, that you can take a landing unit yourself.
Yes, you can take a landing unit. So that means you won't be busified, you'll be the one busifying. It reminds me of that movie where the main character, one of the Rorschachs, his name was Rorschach, when he ended up in prison, he said, they didn't lock me in here with you, they locked you in here with me. And here Pirozhocek is saying the same thing.
And basically to choose a place for service, from there to serve, to find the most rearward post in the most remote region. But the main thing is to become...
So it's already occupied by you, and you've found the most rear position in the most remote area. Well, in the center of Kyiv, I think, but still... Yes, what's happening is that it can't be taken anymore because you're already occupying it. Vacate the vehicle, take off your chevrons, leave, and someone else will take your place. Then there will be a chance.
Take a seat at Ukraine's defense, as its strength isn't only in infantry, the front line, or buying a dome.
That's still, well, it's a whole bunch of other specialties. The defense forces who can be there, well, there could be a security guard in the parking lot, for example. Then maybe someone who cuts trees, or who else? Those who fight cockroaches can also in principle be added to the positions at the front, but look at Pirozhocek, he even squinted, he's thinking, God, how right I am.
In France, there are positions that need to be closed, but there are simply critically not enough people.
It's critically lacking, and Pirozhocek complains, well, he should go and show how it is there. You go and serve and serve and serve, that's it. Then there are others as well. By the way, we looked at Yerinsky's, but there are more. For example, there is another character like this, who suddenly, with a monitor lizard in the background, says the following while wearing headphones.
We are looking for people who can manage things in one way or another.
I can manage a glass of beer. That's interesting. Does it serve as a tool or not? He was even surprised by that. The journalist, she used to host a show with an interesting focus, and now she's surprised, wondering what's going on there. Well, of course, a woman also wants to be in control sometimes.
It's like playing games, sitting with a joystick and controlling things.
Oh, so nobody dies. Great. The front is where nobody dies. It's where you play games. Games of the third kind. Burns talked about it, but what can you do?
Everyone just sits around like a little drone. You're exactly the kind of person we need.
Look at how he just dismissed the fate of all those drone operators who talk about fighting on the front lines with their buddies. Ukeli's Tolstolovic and that guy, the one who was always whipping everyone into a pitchfork mob, I forgot his name. Well, basically, a whole bunch of these characters suddenly got access to drones. They suddenly got people under their command, and in their free time, they launched these drones from near Kyiv somewhere. That is 23.5 hours a day. They have the opportunity to go to restaurants, go to the gym, swim in the pool, have fun, appear in studios, and tell other people how they should go to war. Well, and spend half an hour flying drones, because that's not dangerous. You sit there with a joystick in your hands and you don't have any negative emotions. Well, thank you for explaining. So finally, there's a normal person who explained in plain language that all these Achilles types, well, they're not afraid for their own lives. But to others, they say you go to the assault troops or you go to the sappers or they remember someone else. Well, it just doesn't sound very fair, but Ukraine is a democratic country, so maybe that's why there's injustice. So that's how it is. Basically, everyone is arguing with everyone. Everyone has some problems. Somewhere something is being seized. Well, let's see in the near future if they really did seize it. Or if it's something like a lie, or a half-truth, or a third of a third truth. In short, we watch and observe. Don't change the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Bye, everyone.
Subtitles proud that we got the gayest parliament. I don't think just of all time, anywhere in the world, I don't think there's any parliament that is gayer than this parliament.